Hi, and welcome to Tremco Live, where we're technically distant but socially connected. What I wanted to be able to present to you guys today with my partner in crime, Paul, I wasn't able to do that. So today we have a special guest. I'm Marcy Tyler, the Director of Building Science, but I am joined by Kevin. Kevin, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank God it's Friday, correct?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, I've been with Tremco for over 17 years and been involved with all sorts of projects, from energy projects to with Can-Am, concrete project, the roofing projects. Because of our particular skills, we've been involved in all the regions from coast to coast, Mumbai, Japan. So I'm pretty familiar with most of the reps, and hopefully they're familiar with me and our group.
Well, great. And if they don't know you, now they do. And everyone that's watching, what we are featuring today is a case study, and that case study hits home for us because it is our headquarters. It's located in Beechwood, Ohio, and it's where I'm broadcasting from today. And where we broadcast from every week. So I think in the past, we've let our viewers know that the renovation took place about 10 years ago. And prior to that, we had the capability of feeling the air coming through our windows, even though they were closed. So that wasn't a good thing. But we also knew that as we were talking to customers about restoration, about renovation, about energy conservation, we knew that being able to do something to our own facility would be truly beneficial. It allowed us to walk the talk and experiment with those products. So Kevin, what was your role in this whole restoration renovation process?
I was part of the whole group. I was a construction manager on it. I would like to say I was like a marriage counselor, because it was, as everybody knows, communication is a key thing. And there were a lot of people in our group that we had to put together, from the energy aspect of, from the vegetation aspect, from the windows. So we had a large group. I helped wrangle that group together in the many meetings that we had, so we made this a successful project.
Well, it's interesting that you mentioned communication and being that marriage counselor, because I know that that's one major benefit of many of the benefits of utilizing WTI and being that hub, right, that communicator to all the different interested parties. We do have a few slides that we did prepare for you all today, so we'll get those up here on screen for us to talk through. And as always, we kick it off with this great information or great view of who we represent today. So generally, Paul likes to say that we represent Tremco Construction Products Group, which is a great group of brands, systems, products, and of course, people. And that's why I was so excited to be able to have Kevin join us today. And once again, you can see those brands that are up there. The Tremco Commercial Sealants and Waterproofing that I represent, Tremco Roofing and Building Maintenance, WTI, which Kevin represents, and of course, Drive It, Nudura, and Will Seal. Our topic today, once again, is that Green North renovation. A few weeks back, I talked about the typical age of buildings. They say they're anywhere between 40, the average age is about 40 years old. And what was interesting was when our building here turned 40 years old, that was when we decided to do that renovation. This is great because this actually shows a lot of pictures, and this probably is part of the memories that it's going to bring back to you, Kevin, is just that, right? The coordination of all the people, the products, the systems. And of course, one of the most exciting things I think about this is that zero landfill, which was a goal of this project. So I'm sure looking at these pictures is bringing back some memories for you.
Yes. For some good ones and some bad ones, and some tough ones and some nice ones. It's like any project, not everything runs smooth, but it's how you handle the bumps. And it seemed like everybody as a team pulled together, getting everyone together to just agree on which way the shades would go. I mean, you wouldn't think that would be a big problem, but we had some input, and it was everybody's input that helped us come to a successful project.
Well, I think that's just it, right? That level of detail that is necessary on these projects for success. Just so everyone who's watching today knows what this building used to look like. And we'll show obviously the after picture as well. So we had, our building is a 3.5-story office building. It's about 46,000 square feet. It was built around 1970. We had a burst system with 2 inches of insulation. We had single pane clear glass windows. We had slate exterior over steel frame and no interior wall insulation. So that was what it looked like and that we were dealing with. And at the time, it was about $5 a square foot for energy costs, which was twice the industry average. The employee comfort, as I mentioned, was poor year round, right? So you were hot in the summer and you were cold in the winter, and then the HVAC system couldn't regulate. So we had a lot of different repair and maintenance costs that was going to associate with that, and our facility management approach was not sustainable. So we knew we had to make some changes. And here were some of the goals. We wanted to reduce that energy consumption. We wanted to reduce greenhouse gas. We wanted to improve employee comfort. Of course, extend the building life cycle, and then achieve LEED Gold. And so what we were able to do was do just that. So if you're interested in learning more about that LEED Gold, the information can be found online. We also have a great AIA course that is approved that we can share on that whole process. And I think it's really great to see how that whole process went about. And what I think is even more interesting is this was 10 years ago. So imagine all the improvements today that can be made, maybe even with technology that can assist in that. Kevin, how much were you involved in the LEED portion of this restoration or this renovation?
Well, throughout everything, well, a lot, because everything that we did had to be monitored and tracked. So from, like you said, from hauling the trash away to recycling the slate on it. So everything had to be tracked. So I had to report to I think it was URS who was tracking it for us. And so it was a good collaboration. So it was they let it off, but we reported to them on things that were happening.
And is this that kind of reporting, is that based on all the points and all of that? Did you get into that detail, or is it more just making sure you had to report everything?
Well, no, we had to get into the getting the points, figuring out what points needed to be had. For instance, we had a bicycle rack. You get so many points for a bicycle rack, but in order to get those bicycle rack, you had to have a shower. So an interesting story was when I found out that we needed to put a shower in. I had to go down into the basement and I had to start measuring up this poor woman's office. And she was looking at me like what I was doing in there. And I didn't have the heart to tell her that she was going to lose about 5 foot of her office space. Right. But, so it was a total involvement as far as finding out what the points were and then how we were going to achieve those.
Great. So yeah, so if anyone's interested in learning more about that, there's a whole scorecard that's available on the USGBC site. We did achieve that LEED Gold. It was 72 points. To go platinum, you had to have 80 points. We're just shy of that. And we were accredited for that in 2012. So I think that the overall construction began in about 2010. So it's just pretty interesting. And I know through the years, the USGBC has gone through their point systems and gone through some changes. So if you aren't familiar with it, I suggest reaching out to them as a great resource of information if that's something that you're interested in for accreditation for your building. And it goes through each of the levels of sustainability through here. But specifically, let's take a look at what we did. And you can see here, the top picture is the after. And I'm sitting in that top corner of that building. And then obviously the bottom picture is the below. So when we look at those retrofits results, we put a whole new drive-it facade on. So obviously with that, beforehand, if you remember, we had the slate on steel. So now we're going to go with a great ability to have a continuous air barrier, moisture drainage plane. We took that capability of having no insulation, and now we're insulating that building. And all that slate was used as a walkway and on the vegetated roof. Were you involved in that part too, Kevin, the slate and how we utilize that?
Okay, so to clarify, the slate on the lower where you see the windows at, that stayed in place. Behind that, where the structure, steel structure that was covered with asbestos. So we had to deal with the asbestos that was attached to that space. The only, or to the slate, the only slate that we ended up using was on the penthouse. So,
Okay.
that slate didn't have asbestos on it, so we had to be careful when we removed the asbestos on the on the lower portion. And so the upper portion of the, and I saw earlier that the penthouse had the slate that we took down, and then that's where we made the walkway out of. Yes, so it was, at first it was going to be a single path where one person was walking. So I talked to the architect and said, look, you're going to have 2 or 3 people walking over, so that slate path needed to be wider. So we had to get involved and figure out the weight for the roof to make sure that was going to handle it, because we were adding weight to the structure. So
all right. Okay.
Definitely.
Thanks for that clarification. So yes, I misrepresented that, because that would have been quite the job if you had to remove all the slate over the entire building in order to accommodate that. But this just opens up all those capabilities as we look at these existing buildings that are 40 or 50 years old, and how you can take that existing structure and give it a whole new look, not only from an aesthetic perspective, but then obviously getting you the energy efficiency, being able to apply that continuous air barrier and give you a moisture drainage plan, so you have a more functioning structure. So thank you for that clarification. That was very helpful.
And Drive It was very helpful in that, because slate, if you don't know, has oils in it. So we had to do adhesion tests on it to make sure that what we were applying was going to stay. So it was great with the sister companies coming in, helping us out. Even Sealants came in and helped us out with the ETA for the windows, connecting to the slate before we put the Drive It on. So it was a good collaboration from our sister companies.
Is definitely, I was a part of some of those conversations, so I definitely remember them. And perfect segue into these pictures, where we started to look at the windows, being able to put in the new window system, and then that transition, as you mentioned, using ProGlaze ETA and Spectrum One as that connection piece. Tell me a little bit about these pictures.
So on the right, you see the upper right, that's the old window glazing. You can see how it all failed, a single pane. You're looking at the interior on the upper or the left-hand side of the new windows going in. And what you're seeing there at the very, I guess at the final there, is the caulking of the windows to the Drive It. What you're not seeing there is where the ETA went into the window to the substrate.
Got it. Yeah. So you're not seeing that visually there. So yeah. So what we did was made that connection from the flashing membrane, utilizing the ProGlaze ETA. So XOR 110 back then, not our newer technology 110 AT, connecting it with Spectrum One to the window using ProGlaze ETA. I know you worked with a variety of different contractors that were local. Do you want to name a few that worked on this part of the project?
With Carroll Glass as the installer that we utilized. Conair, actually, that's the window that was put in there, and the reason we utilize them is because they procure a lot of sealant material for their window systems. So Conair was previously, I guess, a partner with Sealants because they were buying your product to put into their window systems. And then the local installer, Carroll Glass, was the guys we utilized for them. The Drive It people were Jess Sailor's group out of the Toledo, Detroit area. Who's one of the better Drive It contractors in the country.
Wow, that's great. I wonder how they felt about utilizing our products on our building. That might have been a little uncomfortable for them, knowing we're watching their every move and also making the products. So that's interesting. So as we go up to the roof, this is the area that we had a lot of attention on. We wanted to be able to have a nice walkway. We wanted to have that the right vegetated system. We also were focusing on the stormwater runoff so that we were able to help with the HVAC efficiency. And there is some of that recycled slate. Do you want to talk to us a little bit about that part of the project?
Okay, so over on the right-hand side, you can see where we incorporated some of our metal panels. Now, that height of the wall had to be raised to meet OSHA standards, since we were going to have tour groups up there. So we physically had to raise, I think it was like, we had to figure out the elevation of, as you know, as you walk around that, you have different heights, elevations on that vegetated roof. So we had to maintain the OSHA standard all the way around, raise that perimeter wall up, and then we actually installed an air barrier on there on either side of that wall before we installed the drive-it system. And then, as you see on the left-hand side, my left-hand side, with the screening there, where the vegetated plants were going to grow up. Those had to be designed by an engineer so they could withstand the wind load. And again, what was interesting about all these, you had several different roof systems that were put on there. So that section was the vegetated roof. The section above it was a TPA roof. So we just didn't use one system. We used several of the roof systems throughout the building. So in front of the building, there's another vegetated roof. Again, behind the building on one of the canopies, we used a different product, so we could show the customers as they walked around the different products we used.
Yeah, that really demonstrates that flexibility that we have, right? So depending on what system or how you want to utilize that space, what performance characteristics you need from it, we can customize it, and that's exactly what we did for our own roof. And there is a great walkway up there at the end. I do show a video of the garden as it is today. It is nice to take a break and be able to walk around there and have that meeting space that is up there in that penthouse area with the nice open windows, and just being able to kind of have a little outdoor time, even if you're on the roof of the building. So I think that's a favorite spot for all of us, that's for sure.
And one of the things there too is to note is that we are capturing the water on that system. And I don't know, in a lot of areas now, capturing the water, like I know I get assessed at my house for my driveway, all hardscape. So it's basically any water that goes into the sewer system, you're being assessed by the hardscape. So by having the system like that, you're reducing the wastewater or the water that goes into pollute Lake Erie. So that's a big help for the sewer systems.
Thanks for mentioning that, because that is a huge piece of that, is being able to recapture it, so we're not contributing to the wastewater. Here's some more pictures of the roofing system of this highly reflective surface. Tell us what's going on here.
Okay, this is on top of the penthouse. This is what I was referring to earlier, where we use several different systems so that we could show what our abilities are, or capabilities are rather, for different customers. So this is a TPA roof that went on top of the penthouse.
Got it. So those pictures we just showed were the lower level of the roof, and then this is on top of that area that was directly to the left of those pictures. Just
Correct.
To have everyone understand that. And then as we continue on, some more pictures of the roofing system here with the Tremco rocket system.
Correct. So the one on the upper right-hand corner is the back canopy, and then you're looking at the front canopy over in the lower right-hand corner there. That's got that border around it, which will eventually be a vegetated roof.
Well, and I guess this is a great picture to show, as you would see on any type of construction site, the materials all around, the coordination, and that's where that was a key part of your job, as you mentioned, the coordination and communication, as this was an active building, right? So we had to, the workers had to move off site, I believe, during part of this.
What we had was that 2 floors were kept open at times, and then we moved one floor completely off site. And then, so we did have workers, or our staff was still on site as we moved out, and eventually we ended up moving everybody out as we had to. But at some point in time, there was just one floor, and then we would move up and then move people back in as we could. So it was a good coordination by the team.
The coordination, and that was that advantage of being able to use something like the drive it outsolation, right? Because you're going over that existing structure. So you moved people out when you had to handle the window part of it. Had you done more work to the exterior, we may have had to move people out even more often. So that just that shows that feature of being able to add to that existing structure and get some additional performance so that you don't have as much moving of that interior space. And I know part of it was our HVAC system and that upgrade from this restoration efforts. Tell me more about this.
We brought in several different engineering experts to help us out with the HVAC units. So I was involved in, and more or less on this one, just to be honest with you, is with their pay applications and a little bit of the coordination, but our engineerings that we brought in basically handled this and the plumbing and the water. So some of these, luckily, I wasn't totally involved with it. I was able to pass off on the responsibilities to the local experts.
Got it. And I know it was so interesting because right after we finished this, we did take a lot of people through tours of these buildings. And so it was great to be able to bring people through, explain this process. And I think what's interesting is there's probably been a lot of people, or I know there's been a lot of people that are new to Tremco that may not have realized that all these retrofit steps were taken and what this whole new building is able to provide to us as a, being able to talk about exactly how we can do renovation efforts in a structure. So I know that a lot of people were pretty excited about hearing this information directly from us today. I think some of the questions that are coming in is about just that, like, what do you feel what is the biggest design challenge, or what do you feel is the biggest lesson learned that you had through this whole experience? I figured we'd answer that question real quick as we're going through these slides.
The challenge actually, from what I got, was what does us as the end user, what do we want the building to look like? How do we want it to operate? What do we want it to show? And our, with us, we wanted to do it, have it more like a showroom. Here's what we can do. So I think we accomplished that. It's, one of the things we couldn't do is we could have done was put a wind turbine up on the roof. But in order to do that, it would have cost, to going down into the structure, would have cost a lot of money. So we wanted to put it up there. We looked at the cost. We went and decided the best place to put it was in the back of the parking lot. So it was a team effort all the way from the top, all the way down to the guy sweeping the floor.
So understanding that whatever that end goal is, I know right now many of us are working on different types of retrofits and renovations, and I think that's a key part of it, is making sure we're all on the same page of what does our end goal look like. And I know this was part of it, right? We wanted to make sure we had some renewable energy. You mentioned the wind turbine, but then there was also these solar panels. I know we've done a lot of work in terms of the clip systems that exist. There's probably so many improvements, and that's what's interesting, is that this was done between 2010 to 2012, I believe. So that's why we're celebrating our 10-year anniversary of that renovation. But I'm sure there's even more improvements that you've seen through the years with different types of clip systems.
Yes.
And then, go ahead.
Well, I was saying with the clip system, and with that, like you're looking at the solar panels, I wanted to kind of say that's kind of where our method, where we go to cradle to grave. They would have the construction manager go out with the engineer, look at the structure so that they're down there from concept to where we implement it. So we're out there at the very beginning with the engineer, getting the drawings, looking, crawling up in the ceilings, looking at the structure. And then when we get with the worker bees, we're on site. If the engineer's not there, we can help answer that question because we have gone and looked at everything with the engineer.
Well, I think that's a key part. So, Kevin, this whole month of July, we've been focused on connectivity, right? So how important that is to the overall performance of your structure, picking the right products, making sure that they're tested as assemblies. And the last thing you'd want to do is go ahead and start putting a clip system in that is not going to perform or would introduce a whole lot of holes or issues in your building. So that's a key part of it. So thank you for bringing that up as well, because I think that's perfect in that messaging of connectivity. We always got to think about what's coming next and how that can affect the existing systems that are on there. So I know we just had a conversation yesterday, and that was a question that came up was, you know, exactly how do we handle solar power? Do we have experience with that? And thank you for bringing that up. That obviously you do, and that is something that we like to be a part of, that whole cradle to grave, every aspect of that renovation project. I know we talked a little bit about this already, about capturing the renewable energy from a rainwater harvesting perspective in that catch basin. I think there is, at least this is noted here, there's 6 cisterns that store 15,000 gallons of water for reuse. I know you touched on this already, but I'm sure there's probably some more you'd like to add at this point.
The cisterns that are capturing that water, again, depending on the community you live in, you may be saving, I don't know how you, my bill, my water bill is basically most of my sewer bill. So if you do have a cistern, you are using that, a company can save money on their cost, their water cost, because they may get they will get a discount from the sewer department, or their water bill, if you would. So,
yeah. Well, and I think the other interesting part of this is seeing the cisterns in the parking lot, right? So we're recapturing water that is on our parking lots. So not only what is coming off the roof, but what is being collected or you know, coming down onto the parking lot area. And then that's just another great picture of the progression throughout the process of the building there with the scaffolding all around it. And then daylighting. So obviously, as we looked at the whole sustainability approach and LEED Gold, we knew that there was some improvements we could make for daylighting as well. So we wanted to be able to do that and diffuse the diffusion of natural light and help us reduce our dependence on electric lights. So even here in the room I'm in today, we've got great big windows. I actually have to close the blinds because it's so bright and sunny in here.
so what you're looking at is a stair tower that was added up to the south building. That brick over on the lower right-hand side, that is actually drive it. And then on the interior of that, we used fiber grate as the stairwell. So what you're looking at there that looks like brick is really not brick. It is one of our sister companies' products. It's a drive it product.
Right. Right, Drive It, that is obviously part of the Tremco Construction Products Group. Just one more of the versatility of using those Drive It products in the EAF system, making it look like that existing brick is huge advantage to that. And then, of course, there was a lot of restoration and renovation on the interior space, being able to put vestibules so that we don't have that outside air very easily entering into the conditioned space. I know we had a lot of improvements on the flooring. We did use Stonehard for their flooring system, some Modern Masters for the wall finishes. And of course, here is some of that aesthetics, the pictures of the walkways, some of the work going on in the walkway, and of course, the big slate front entryway with the Tremco T was a big part of all of that. So as we went through this whole progress, through the whole renovation, we were able to recycle and reduce that landfill. So we had a zero landfill goal. I know that was probably a big part of what you had to work on, Kevin, and your role on this project.
I was, yes, I was involved with that. Jane, again, I can't talk about enough for her. She was spearheaded this up where there was any kind of a problem as far as getting. she would do the research, she got into it, and she was a big help for this. So I can applaud her enough. I think without her, I don't think we would have been successful 100% on the renewal of this. So
it's great. It's always nice to give shout outs to all of those coworkers of ours for sure. We also had solar powered carport, and I think back then we were like, come on, but we definitely have cars in the parking lot that plug into that on a regular basis, so that we are utilizing different types of energy, collecting it solarly, obviously here. We do have a slide here talking specifically about that WTI and the construction management role of your team. And you mentioned a lot of this already in terms of the coordination and your role throughout this progress and throughout this site, which is a regularly occurring responsibility for you and your coworkers on a regular basis. I think what's interesting is the building as it is today. I mentioned we used to do tours on a regular basis, and we still would love to be able to do that when we're able to have people through our facility. And it always starts off with telling that story of the Tremco Incorporated headquarters here in Beechwood, and how important it was for us to invest in our own building and be able to see those improvements in energy efficiency. We are able to walk people up through our staircase and show them that progression. So this is a very quick video. I did it on a time lapse. I'm certainly not making it up the stairs as quickly, but imagine as you come to our facility today, 10 years later, seeing these improvements still working, seeing these improvements still affecting our workability here in our facility. So let's take a quick look at that. So super quick viewpoint all the way around on our green roof. Just as you guys saw it, this was me just yesterday taking pictures. Loved going up there. You briefly saw the penthouse. Here is the pictures of what you would have saw when you start on the first floor. You get to see the overall information about everything that we did in terms of improvements across our campus. As you approach the first landing, you see that second picture in showing the existing building, and it goes through all of the different steps that we took on that stage. The second landing obviously is when we have all of our scaffolding in place. It talks about all of our Tremco and RPM partners. As we mentioned throughout this process, the company like Drive It, which is now obviously part of Tremco Commercial Sealants and Waterproofing and part of that construction products group. Fibergrate. We also mentioned Stonehard, and of course both Tremco Roofing and Tremco Commercial Sealants and Waterproofing. And then when you get to the next landing, it's showing us the green roof. And what I did not capture is once we're up on the penthouse area, it goes into greater detail all about that green roof space, all the initiatives that we talked about today. We wanted to make sure that we were able to produce 12% of our building energy in renewable energy. We want to reduce our heating and cooling costs, reduce our water consumption, and improve our occupant comfort. And we're meeting all four of those criteria on a regular basis. We compared our energy bills. We were looking at a reduction in electricity since 2010 of 32% and a reduction in gas of 52%. So that is pretty significant to be able to see that 10 years later. So I'll just say that again, it was the reduction in the electricity was 32% and the reduction in gas was 52%. Now, when you think about the electricity, we are all using so much more electricity now than we were using 10 years ago, and yet we're still seeing that 32% reduction in energy or in that use of electricity. So it's pretty significant when you look at it from that perspective. Overall, Kevin, any final words about this progress, this project that you want to share?
Other than that, it was one of the more difficult projects I think I was on, and I'm just going to be totally honest, because we're under a microscope. I mean, this was one of the first projects that we had Ox Blue on. And at first, I would say that Ox Blue, I don't know if anybody's familiar with that, but that's a camera that we can have out on projects. And I think it's good to be under that microscope, because I know you guys are proud of, I know I'm proud of what I do. I don't care if somebody's watching over my shoulder. And I think for an owner that can go on and look at the project as it's being completed is a great, the reps can do it. So I think that was a big plus for this project, that if somebody was at home or their office or out of town, they could look at this project and see how it was coming along.
Yeah, and I think Larry Lurkey mentioned it on a previous segment about Tremvision
Yes.
and that capability of being able to watch that progression. And I know, we didn't have the drone program, right? Now we have drones that can go in, and I've been on jobs now where drones are actually looking at your work as you're progressing too. So you're right, having those capabilities, and it's ever more so now today than it was 10 years ago. I wanted to make sure that I introduced this concept. So we talked about LEED Gold and how that was a goal of ours when we started this renovation back in 2010. But the Department of Energy, Oak Ridge National Labs, does have a building envelope campaign. They just launched it in June. So this is a call to action for anybody watching to be able to participate in their building envelope campaign. So they're welcoming members in different stages, either participants or supporters, and they're looking at giving some accreditations to buildings that are seeing this energy savings. So there's an assessment tool that you can see online. It can be either new construction or retrofit. It has to be a building that had been completed since January of 2019. So this is a brand new thing for people to look at and be able to investigate in. And in a minute, many of us at Tremco participated in this building envelope campaign. There's webinars on it. We thought right away we wanted to take a look at our energy bills, that we wanted to be able to look at how our renovation project's going. And we're very proud to say that we're continuing to see those energy savings year after year, even 10 years in. What's most amazing as we close today is we have so many more opportunities now to apply options to meet everyone's need with our Tremco Construction Products Group, with having Drive It, even though they were a huge part of this project, being under the Tremco brand. We've got the Drive It brand, Nadura, so if we needed to add on anything, we could use insulated concrete forms, and of course Will Seal to be able to provide us with expansion joint materials that are also insulated. And of course, as always, the commercial sealants and waterproofing team, the roofing team, and WTI. So with that, I want to thank Kevin for joining us today. I want to thank everyone for attending today's broadcast. In the month of August, we're going to have all new co-hosts with me each Friday from industry organizations. Please send out these invites to your coworkers, your colleagues, because I think you're going to learn a lot from each of these organizations. So thanks everybody for your time and attention today, and have a great weekend.